These young women went missing between July of 2007 and September of 2010. For the next 13 years, their cases went unsolved. Until today.
Rex Heuermann.
Rex Heuermann.
Rex Heuermann. Rex Heuermann.
Rex Heuermann
is now in custody.
Gilgo Beach has been used to discard human remains for some time.
This is the perfect place to dump a body.
I found another one.
3 more.
Really scared me.
Body count, body count, body count. People in our area are starting to get nervous.
We're anxious to have this over with.
And that's when I remember the police commissioner saying for the first time the word serial killer.
We could have a serial killer.
Her last phone call was to 911.
If not for Shannon Gilbert, these women would not have been found.
Find this killer before he strikes and hurts and murders someone you love.
He believes the killer is likely still in the area.
What has Rex Heuermann been doing all this time?
Likely following the police department's every move.
He had over 200 searches pertaining to the Gilgo investigation.
It really makes me wonder, like, was he watching us?
This guy made a mistake somewhere. He said someday that they'll figure out what that was.
I was the Long Island reporter for about 4 years. I had just gotten this job in 2009, in the fall of 2009. I grew up in New York City and I went to high school in the Bronx and I knew all about the 5 boroughs and I was familiar with New Jersey, but I'd honestly never really been to Long Island more than once or twice in my life. And I got hired by Channel 7 and they gave me the Long Island job. And so it was interesting because I had to kind of learn it. And I was working every day with a photographer named Tony Saturno, who was my partner and is still to this day the Long Island photographer, has worked for this company for decades. Really smart guy who knows every inch of that bureau area. It's important to talk about where these discoveries happened. They happened on this completely deserted stretch of, I think it's around 15 miles long. It's the Ocean Parkway, and it's just basically a road and dunes on either side. And here and there are little villages. Gilgo Beach is one of them, Oak Beach is another, Tobe Beach is another, and in between them, it's just nothing. There's the ocean on one side and the bay on the other side. Some of them are real surfers' paradises, and people do go to them, and they are beautiful in the summer. Every other time of year, it's basically deserted. And, you know, it's beautiful during the day. At night, there are no streetlights, and if there is traffic, you can hear the traffic coming from probably a couple miles away, and you can see the lights because it's just a long stretch. You know, it's an ideal place for a serial killer to do this. We were out in Suffolk County on a regular garden variety day. We were doing, I think, a live shot at 5 o'clock in Suffolk County, maybe 5:30. We were on our way back and we got a call from the desk. There's a crime scene. There's a maybe body discovered way down south on Ocean Parkway. Go check it out. Everything on that barrier island is a solid 10 degrees colder than it is anywhere else. It's just cold and windy and punishing and just raw. It's pitch black, and there are 4 crime scenes along the beach. You know, every, maybe 30 to 50 yards or so, there was another crime scene vehicle and spotlights set up, and then another one and another one. And it was clear at that point that it was something. It was maybe 6:15. The news still had 15 minutes left. We were going into weather and sports, and we wouldn't usually come up with breaking news, but the producers said they wanted it, and so we set up to do a live shot. The producer of the 6 o'clock news here, who is still the producer, told me he remembers that live shot.
I remember a 6 o'clock newscast trying to get him on. We went to the story, and if you notice, the graphic wasn't even properly set up when we went to it. It's just at the very last second, okay, I see Josh up there, let's just do it.
We're following some breaking news right now. A body has been found in Oak Beach.
Breaking news. Liz Cho says we're, following breaking news on Long Island. Crime scene. A body's been discovered.
And police believe there may be other bodies out there.
Liz remembers that. Everyone remembers that live shot because it was really messy on the air.
The producer had gotten in my ear from the control room to tell me that breaking news was happening on Long Island. So there was this urgency to get to Josh to establish that live shot.
We were having technical problems. We have a signal. We don't have a signal. We have a signal. We don't have a signal.
Apparently, we've just been told that we have lost our live shot.
That happened several times, and then finally, once we had signal, we tried it, and it failed.
We're going to try to reestablish our live show with Eyewitness News reporter Josh Einiger. As soon as we do, we will bring you much more on this breaking news, and we'll have much more coming up tonight on Eyewitness News at 11 o'clock as well.
The signal dropped out, and they didn't have us, and then she had to kind of ad-lib. She and Bill had to ad-lib their way into a commercial break.
Bodies buried at the beach.
Yes. Yes.
This story was not like a regular breaking news story. It is not every day that you hear about human remains, several bodies in an area around here.
Eyewitness News reporter Josh Einiger, he's following that breaking news in Oak Beach. We want to return to him right now. Josh, what's up?
They finally came to us, and we did this live shot.
This is the barrier island to the south of the town of Babylon, an extensive search that goes on for a good mile along the bay here south of the town of Babylon. You could see crime scene investigators there, and then, Tony, if you want to come back out, you could see behind me, and then clear up the beach right here.
As he's describing what he sees, I am trying to zoom in and show the public exactly what's going on, the crime scene, the officers, the detectives, and showing the distance of the vehicles to show that it's not just condensed into one small area. It is covering a large area of Ocean Parkway.
We know right now that they can confirm in the last couple of days they have found 2 bodies.
We didn't know anything at the time. All we knew is that there were, human remains found. We didn't really know what. There had been a discovery of human remains 2 days earlier on the weekend that we'd gotten tape of the crime scene, but we hadn't really covered it all that extensively.
We believe skeletal remains, one on Saturday, one today, and we're told possibly more remains, the remains of more bodies on the beach. We'll continue to follow this throughout the night. A full report on Eyewitness News tonight at 11.
Zahir told me something fascinating. He said he just knew he wanted to get it on the air because to him it seemed like something big, and that he would regret not jamming it into his newscast and not figuring out how to do it.
Remember this discussion during whether is it really worth again trying to go after it. Me being the sarcastic person I am, I said, with my luck, it's going to end up being a serial killer. So let's do it.
But for now, we're live on Gilgo Beach. Josh Einiger, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
All right, Josh, thank you. Keep us up to date. It was kind of ironic when the signal dropped out twice that this mystery, this murder mystery, mass murder mystery really, we knew so little about it, and we couldn't even get the signal up. It was sort of like some indices that says, you don't know anything about this.
I've been covering Long Island for quite a number of years, but we never realized that when we pulled up that night that over 10 years it would still be an ongoing crime scene.
And it ended up being the first report of this global story, this unbelievable true crime mystery that really persists to this day.
Oak Beach tonight, looking more like a gruesome cemetery. On Saturday, a canine unit on a training exercise here uncovered the first body. Investigators trying to determine if the skeleton belonged to a young person who was reported missing earlier this year. When search teams returned to the same location today to look for more evidence, they found instead 3 more bodies stuffed in these brushes.
I don't think I was ever prepared for what it was going to look like when I got to Gilgo, how truly isolated and eerie it was going to look like.
Police discovered 3 more bodies yesterday at Oak Beach, a remote barrier island popular in the summer.
I was new to Channel 7. I was from Texas. It was the most cold weather I've ever experienced in my life. Like, it sliced through me.
All of the remains were stuffed in the bushes along an isolated strip of waterfront property.
I think we got there at 2 o'clock in the morning after they found the first 3 bodies. And even though there were a number of crews out there, it still seemed very, very isolated. You just could not make up the story. You could not make up the weather, just the entire environment at the time. It was just spooky. It was really spooky.
Whenever I think of this story, I just think I'm cold because it was so cold.
We're here at the scene of this very disturbing discovery over the past couple of days.
The day after that first report, I actually drove out and met Tony there, and it was really cold, and there was snow on the ground.
4 bodies just in the last couple of minutes. We have seen just off in the distance a cadaver dog that was brought out here really in the last 10 minutes to continue the search because police do not know if there are any more bodies out there.
And that's when I remember the police commissioner saying for the first time the words serial killer.
We're looking at that. We're looking at that we could have a serial killer.
one of the most significant things I've ever heard any kind of public official say. I think it was the first full day after that first report that we did, and there's a press conference with the man who was then the police commissioner, and he said something that to this day I remember everything about what he said and how he said it. He said, we're looking at that.
We're looking at that we could have a serial killer.
And it was something about the syntax and the way he phrased it. It was in response to somebody said, is this a serial killer? And to this day, so many years later, symbolizes, the moment that it was clear that this was something enormous.
I don't think it's a coincidence that 4 bodies ended up in this area.
When you're looking for one person and then you find 3 other remains, it's bigger than what you're covering at the time.
And then we'd have these updates, and they were typically on anniversaries or whatever, and I think it belies the dysfunction at the top of the police department at the time, because they clearly didn't know whether it was 1 person or 2 people or 3 people.
Anything is possible at this point because there's so many unanswered questions.
There was a lot of speculation because it's still a remote area. Maybe more than 1 person used this as a dumping ground because it was that isolated, the weather conditions were that extreme out there.
I don't want anybody to think that we have a Jack the Ripper running around Suffolk County with blood dripping from a knife.
They told us all of those things over a course of many months. They said this is a serial killer.
They say definitely the work of a serial killer.
Then they said they think this is 2 serial killers.
The killings may be the work of more than 1 person.
This is not an episode of CSI. This is an intensive, long-term investigation that includes the use of sophisticated technology as well as good old-fashioned detective work.
Then they said they think this is 3 serial killers.
A short time ago, police said the bodies found dumped at several beaches are the work of at least 3 killers, not 1.
And what is now very clear is that the area in and around Gilgo Beach has been used to discard human remains for some period of time.
And then again, they came back to 1.
But the theory is now that we're dealing with 1 serial killer.
It's sort of the tragedy of this story is how incompetently managed this investigation was from the beginning. Suffolk County had never dealt with an investigation like this, and they were very clearly in over their heads.
It is an enormously painstaking and a very protracted process to really get all the right information and be accurate about this.
We have no idea whatsoever that we're dealing with a serial killer.
My initial feeling was, wow, this is going to be a huge story. And, I had never found myself in the middle of a serial killer case before, and certainly not one that was just starting. I mean, a lot of times you see these cases that go on forever, and maybe you'll find yourself covering a little bit of it, and there are these notorious killers, or, that they think they're on the hunt for, and it goes on forever. And on day 1, the very first time, the top cop at the time uttered the words serial killer. And right there, I mean, you knew this was a momentous story, and this was going to be one that we're going to be dealing with for a very long time. Gilgo Beach became the Gilgo serial killer, but Gilgo Beach actually was only kind of near where this happened. It was sort of the closest small village, but it really gave Gilgo Beach as a community a really terrifying name. There are people who do live there year round, and now they're known around the world as this town of horrors.
In a place like this, people say, hey, do you have a dozen eggs because I can't get to the store because they closed the Ocean Parkway again.
Such is life for the handful of people who call Gilgo Beach home. Many of them moved here decades ago for the anonymity, only to see their village become an international symbol of evil.
I have to tell you, I thought how astonishing that they brought up Gilgo Beach. It used to be that no one had any idea where I lived, and now everybody says, oh, I know Gilgo Beach, it's that spot.
It really is. It's the Long Island serial killer or the Ocean Parkway serial killer case. Gilgo Beach just sort of became the shorthand for this.
It's a little bit unnerving. I'm hoping that they don't find anything else, and obviously I'm hoping that they find whoever did this very quickly.
It was clear that there was nothing else that anyone cared about on Long Island for, I don't know, more than a year. It was the story we came back to. It was the location that we kept, standing in the wind at all times of the year as there were new developments with this story.
You start to get concerned about this wonderful area that we live in. Maybe it is somebody who could live in this area, and that you really have to be a little bit more careful.
The search continues for Shannon Gilbert, the missing prostitute whose disappearance led to all these discoveries in the first place.
No one knew anything about Shannon Gilbert. None of us had ever heard of her.
As for the missing woman they were looking for in the first place, she is 24-year-old Shannon Gilbert.
Gilbert was a 24-year-old prostitute who investigators say was last seen in May.
Shannon Gilbert's family tonight telling Eyewitness News she was last seen in the area where those bodies were discovered.
She was believed to have sold herself for sex on Craigslist. Police say they have no idea, quite frankly, if she might be one of the bodies they found.
It could be weeks or months before we identify the 4 people that were found over the last few days.
She had disappeared 6 months earlier, and the police didn't do much with it, and it sort of was festering in their missing persons division or wherever it was. It was not something that they'd ever told us about. We all became acquainted with Shannon Gilbert very quickly when the police explained how they found these bodies, that a police officer and his dog were looking in the area that Shannon Gilbert was known to have disappeared.
A cadaver dog searching this nearby stretch of brush led officers to the skeletal remains of a woman's body. 2 days later, cops returned and found 3 more, all of them dumped in the thick brush.
And so then we met Mary Gilbert, Shannon's mom.
The grief-stricken mother and sister of Shannon Gilbert went through old photos of the 24-year-old in their Ellenville, New York apartment today as detectives try to determine if the missing woman is one of the victims of what may be a serial killer.
Her last phone call was 23 minutes to 911. The police missed her by 5 minutes.
Shannon's mom became this tireless advocate for her daughter and for all the women in this case.
I'm worried about if she suffered.
Gilbert's family says on that night Shannon met with a man she met on Craigslist at the beach in Long Island. They say police have talked to the man and he has taken a lie detector test. Despite her lifestyle, the family says the Shannon they remember was filled with love and promise.
But there was this big question. Is one of those 4 women Shannon Gilbert?
Police refuse to discuss leads in the case or if any of the bodies might be those of Shannon Gilbert or Megan Waterman, 2 prostitutes who disappeared in Suffolk County in May and June. Now the efforts continue to identify the women, but officials caution progress will be very slow.
They tell us that it can take up to 30 days to have that examination complete.
There was this momentous occasion every now and then where they'd gather all the press together and they'd make some announcement. And the announcement was always a big deal. We have a name on this person. We know more about this victim or that victim. But you always left feeling, like you wanted more. Like, okay, well, that's just a detail that they just told us about. But what do they really know? What really happened here? And that's something I think that persisted throughout this investigation, that they were very, very tight with the information, and not just with the public. And that, I think, is to their detriment in the end. They were tight with this information with other agencies that could have helped them solve it sooner, potentially. So it was about 3 or 4 weeks later that we got the names of these poor women.
That conclusion tonight from the medical examiner in Suffolk County after identifying the remains of all 4 bodies found last month near each other on Gilgo Beach, Long Island. All 4 were women, all 4 were prostitutes.
Those bodies now have names and faces and a common cause of death.
We hear names. These poor women were real people who had real names and real families.
What activities these victims may have engaged in prior to their murders does not matter. They were young women whose lives were cut tragically short.
Maureen Brainerd Barnes was from Norwich, Connecticut. Melissa Bartholomew was from Buffalo, New York. Megan Waterman from Scarborough, Maine. And Amber Lynn Costello was from North Babylon on Long Island.
Investigators say all 4 women were prostitutes who advertised their services on Craigslist, each of them vanishing sometime in the past 4 years. Police say the women, all in their 20s, were murdered elsewhere, dumped by their killer along the side of Ocean Parkway on this windswept section of Gilgo Beach.
That opened up all new kind of lines of reporting, and their families started talking.
I convinced myself it wasn't after a week. We didn't hear back from the DNA. I just said it's not her. They would have called us if it was her.
It's sad.
And I just wanted to get a chance to see where my sister was.
Bartholomew vanished from the Bronx over a year and a half ago. Back in Buffalo, her family has endured a heartbreaking wait. They talked to a local news station in September of '09.
If anybody has seen my daughter, please contact us. We really need her to come home to us. We all love her and miss her.
Took my sister's life from me and my family's. I just can't believe it. I just can't believe it.
And what became clear is there were real similarities among all these women. They had all come from backgrounds where they had some degree of trouble in their lives. They were all sort of running from something. And they had found a home in the sex trade in New York. Investigators told us at that press conference that this was the relationship among all four of these women. They were in a line of work that was extremely dangerous.
The victims were engaged in a high-risk business, and these homicides appear to us to be directly related to that business.
I'll actually never forget the district attorney of Suffolk County used this as a chance to warn women not to do this, because look what happened to these four. We don't know who did it, we don't know the details, but they're in a very, very dangerous line of work.
People who are engaged in a similar business should be on very, very high alert.
That was really the big announcement 3-4 weeks in. And what was stunning to everyone covering this case, that not one of those four bodies was linked to Shannan Gilbert, and so she was still missing.
Last night, they definitively ruled out Gilbert as a match for any of those bodies.
At the time, everyone assumed, I think probably the police as well, that her body was there somewhere. She had been murdered like the others because she also was a sex worker. It was hard to imagine that it wasn't linked, that she hadn't met the same fate as the other four. And so they kept searching.
When I get the phone call from the police, every time my heart stops. You know, I'm always thinking, is this the call? Is this the call? I'm frustrated because it's been such a long search.
And then a few months later, they found a fifth body. Also not Shannan.
Investigators now confirm that a fifth body recovered this week is someone else.
And then they found a sixth, a seventh, an eighth, and ninth. Still not Shannan.
But while those first four women were identified as missing prostitutes, Gilbert was not one of them, and she's been ruled out as a match to the four additional bodies discovered in the past week.
My daughter is still missing. We don't know where she is. It's connected, and I wish they would just do their job faster before any more girls get hurt.
– 2011 is the most active period of this investigation. That's when it seems like every few months there's more remains being found.
Uh-oh, we have another one again. It's disturbing.
You have to go back to that time period, March, April of 2011. Long Island and this area is really all over the news.
Gilgo Beach serial killer.
Serial killer investigation.
We're back out on Long Island today looking for more clues and remains.
Constant bodies being found.
More human remains on Long Island.
Another body.
Remains found yesterday are human.
And parts of bodies.
9 sets of bones found so far.
They discovered something that appears to be a human skull.
I remember that time period just thinking how crazy this was.
Investigators believe the women were murdered elsewhere and dumped on this desolate stretch of Ocean Parkway, where their bodies went undiscovered for up to 3.5 years.
They had found the four bodies that were wrapped in burlap.
Police have neither confirmed nor denied claim the bodies were wrapped in burlap.
They were the first set that were discovered. And then enough time had passed, they decided they wanted to do a more extensive search of the area.
It's very tough terrain. There's a lot of sticker bushes in there, there's a lot of thorns. There's ticks, there's poison ivy.
The brush is so thick, homicide detectives with binoculars are standing on the top of these tower ladder trucks that belong to local fire departments so they could peer down and try to find anything that looks suspicious.
They started finding even more human remains.
Another set of skeletal remains found dumped on this deserted stretch of Ocean Parkway in Oak Beach Tuesday evening.
But in this case, they had been dumped in a totally different method.
We look at it as an opportunity that there may be clues available now with this body that will help the homicide investigation, will help it move forward.
3 months after finding the Gilgo 4, they find remains belonging to Jessica Taylor.
The remains have been there for some time, but I don't want to speculate on that. That's why we have the medical examiner do their forensics.
Jessica Taylor's other parts of her had been found previously in July of 2003.
I always thought that when they didn't find the original girl from Oak Beach, that most likely she was there, and it was just because of the weather back in December that they couldn't do a more thorough search. And they said they would be back in the spring, and unfortunately they found another one. I just hope they don't find any more.
People in our area are starting to get nervous.
We're anxious to have this over with, and certainly the people put away.
They wanted to know, who are these people and why are they here and how did they get here?
This newest discovery is making some families who live along this stretch very anxious.
Is there somebody local that lives along one of these beach communities that happens to know that's a very deserted area at a certain time of night, and it would be easy to dump bodies? So it makes you a little concerned that this predator could possibly be living amongst us in one of the beach communities.
But it was very clear. You have to know that area.
He has a place to dump the bodies. It's very ritualistic, repetitive behavior.
These locations, Dr. Kopolinsky believes, were carefully chosen. He suspects the killer lives or works nearby and is comfortable here.
The thrill of the power and the kill is everything to this person.
Only about a week after that, they find even more remains.
It has become a nightmarish graveyard and a massive crime scene. This after 3 more bodies were discovered today near Oak Beach, bringing the total number of victims to 8.
We found human remains, 3 human remains so far in the area between Oak Beach and Gilgo Beach.
When I heard today 3 more, it really, really scared me because I just want somebody to find out who's doing this and end it all.
And we've now learned one of the victims is a child.
They find the remains of a toddler.
At least one set belongs to a toddler, complicating police theories.
Once we got beyond the initial shock of a toddler, I think we still kind of made the assumption that they were all tied to some type of sex worker.
Body number 7 was that of a toddler, a girl between 18 and 24 months when she died. She was wrapped in a blanket when someone dropped her body in the brush. Investigators have not determined a cause of death, and while they don't know if she was murdered, they haven't ruled it out.
The first thing you thought about when you heard about the toddler was that it had to have been a child of one of the sex workers who unfortunately had to bring the child with her. And then what happened to the child? Did the child see their mother die? These are the kind of cases that you can't shake at night when you go home. Like, you can't shake it when you hear things like a baby who was killed with her mother, who was a sex worker. You just don't shake that.
Victim number 8, described as an Asian male in his late teens or early 20s when he was murdered, the victim of obvious trauma. This body, too, has no ID and is unrelated to the others.
And it became that much more of a mystery.
The cause of death is radically different from all the other remains that we have found.
I think it's in everybody's best interest to do the best search we possibly can and to find everything out here that we possibly can, whether they're connected or they're not connected.
I remember finding bodies all over the place on this stretch of highway. Everybody was even confused. Like, wait, what part of the beach was this? Let me look at the map again. Like, we couldn't even get a grasp on just the logistics and where all the bodies were found. But I remember being out there. I remember the roads being closed. I remember law enforcement fanning out, the dogs fanning out. And every time I went out there and I saw any piece of brush, wondering if there was a body there that someone did not see.
Conditions are rough, too, even without the dense foliage that grows in during the summer.
The brush is as difficult as they described it. First of all, it was thick. It was like tumbleweeds, like I remember in Texas. There was a lot of sand. It was prickly. It was almost like rose thorns. Like you couldn't really even put your hand in there.
This is what police are up against. Miles of the densest brush you can imagine. And today, officers, cadaver dogs, even police recruits braved the raw wind to hunt for more bodies on a desolate stretch of Barrier Island that's become a serial killer's graveyard.
And so that's why we always thought they're gonna find more bodies, because this brush is so thick, it's so deep, there's all kind of sand. Like, they could find 100 bodies out here. We have no idea.
And with new spring growth making the dense foliage even more impossible to navigate, authorities have called in the FBI to fly overhead with sophisticated cameras that could see right through the brush.
We're hoping the technology will help identify skeletal remains that may still be out there.
That was, I think, the reason that at first the investigators believed, well, wait a minute, this really is just a popular place for people to dump bodies.
It's a tough area. It's very easy to miss something, but that's why we're doing it again.
You can barely see this officer search through the thick bramble. Difficult to walk through now, especially for the canine cadaver teams. It will be impossible to see or find anything in a couple of months.
If there are any more bodies out there, we want to find them.
They searched for 4 days straight, and then when they called the search off, you still kind of had this empty feeling like there was a stone that was not turned.
The Suffolk police have moved on from this location. They have found no extra bodies here. That's the good news. The death toll still stands at 8. But the bad news, they say they're no closer to catching a serial killer.
So at this point, we have 8 bodies and no suspects. It was really difficult to believe that they had no suspects at the time.
It's not like a TV movie where it's solved in an hour. This is tedious work, which will take time, but that's what detectives do, what homicide does.
You know, we as the press only hear what the police want us to hear.
Quite possible that the police have more information, but they're holding back. I mean, it's even possible that they have a suspect in mind.
We weren't clear if they were withholding that information or if they really just did not know.
But the reality was they were as stumped as we were.
You know this terrain that's behind me, that rugged terrain, very difficult. It is possible that we missed something, and as I said, we're going to be back here again.
And then there was this big bombshell.
A stunning twist in the Long Island serial killings, the remains of a 9th victim and possibly a 10th, found today as investigators expanded their search from Oak and Gilgo beaches to Jones Beach in Nassau County.
The whole Ocean Parkway spans Nassau and Suffolk counties. And so Jones Beach is in the west, and that's Nassau County, and then you drive east and you cross into Suffolk, and then you get all the way east to Robert Moses State Park. That's the end of this barrier island. And all this time, as they've found human remains scattered on the Suffolk County side of the line, it's not like there's a wall. It's just, you know, an area where the pavement changes and you're in Nassau County. At some point, NASA decided they had to start searching, and on April 11th of 2011, they found sets of remains that they believe belonged to 2 more people. So that was victims 9 and 10.
This is a path police bushwhacked their way through yesterday as they made their searches and found their evidence. It is very dense and very thick, very hard to navigate. And it was way back here, almost 100 feet in from the road, that they made one of their grisly finds, what they believe to be a human skull in this hole.
The areas that could be reached by foot, we searched already yesterday. That was about 90% of the areas were passable, by foot.
This is around the time that it got really complicated to tell this story.
Of course, the real concern here is, are there more?
Law enforcement veteran Michael Balboni says the discovery of a 9th and possibly 10th body makes the case much more complicated. These are the first outside of Suffolk County, whose police department has led the case so far. Now he says the investigation will likely expand to include a variety of agencies working together to solve this mystery.
What you want to do now is to bring as many resources as possible, but do it in a coordinated way so that you don't muck up the good work of the Suffolk County Police, but at the same time bring further enhancements to their capability.
There were multiple causes of death potentially. There were multiple methods. Some were dismembered, some were wrapped in burlap, some were partial sets of remains, and the rest of them had been found years earlier somewhere else. And so it became really complicated.
We want to catch the criminal that did this, okay? We want to find out who these people are, we want to identify them, and we want to catch them.
And I think that the public also, they just saw this as this sensational, terrifying case where there was someone in their backyard doing these horrible things.
In the meantime, the people who live here wonder how much longer their little slice of heaven will be known to all the world as a serial killer's graveyard. In Gilgo Beach, Long Island, Josh Einiger, Channel 7, Eyewitness News. It's been almost exactly a year now since Shannon Gilbert vanished in the reeds of Oak Beach, Long Island. Since then, police have spoken to people in Oak Beach and Gilgo Beach, anyone they think might know anything about this case.
There was a man who lived in that community who became an armchair investigator's suspect. Like, this is a person who had history working in like the medical field and vaguely in law enforcement, and there were profile workups that the suspect would be somebody in those fields because they'd understand how to dispose of a body and all that. And I remember interviewing him.
Tonight, for the first time, one of those men talked to me.
He said, "No, it wasn't me. I don't know what you're talking about."
But so you didn't tell them that you had her in your house, that you were...
Of course not. That's ridiculous.
That man is Peter Hackett, a former head of Suffolk County Emergency Medical Services and a former police surgeon who lives near where Gilbert was last seen. Hackett says he never even met Shannon Gilbert, but while he says police have interviewed him about the case 2 or 3 times, he would not say what about. And as for the grisly discoveries miles from his home,
I can't imagine who would do such a horrible, mean thing. It's just, it's beyond the, the level of, my belief or I can't even imagine it happening.
And I saved his business card and his phone number because just in the off chance that it was him. When they said there was an arrest, the very first thing I wanted to know was this guy, and it wasn't.
As her painful pilgrimage continued, Mary Gilbert stopped by the home of Dr. Peter Hackett, a former Suffolk County police surgeon. The Gilberts claim called them the day after Shannon disappeared.
A man identified himself as Hackett, said she was there.
So wearing her daughter's sneakers and joined by other family members, Mary came to visit one of the last places anyone saw Shannon alive. Last year, the 24-year-old prostitute visited this house to meet with a client, but was seen running down the front stairs and up the street, screaming that someone was trying to kill her. Police have said the client, Joseph Brewer, is not a suspect.
Brewer has not been named a suspect and is said to be cooperating in the investigation. This is what he told us today.
My prayers go out to the families. I hope they get vindicated.
Do you know what happened to Shannon Gilbert, Mr. Brewer?
Between Brewer's house and the gate, she disappeared.
It seemed ridiculous at the time that they'd found 10 victims and still had not found Shannon Gilbert. And you really felt for her family.
Somebody had to have heard, or seen something that night. And for nobody to say anything after a year is just kind of ridiculous to me.
He called me on the phone. He told me he went out of the house and Shannon was there. She went to the opposite street, so he was trying to help her.
Mary Gilbert is somebody who I actually came to know quite well. I still have her in my phone. Every now and then I run into her, I pass her name looking for somebody else, and I'll never take it out of my phone because she's a part of my own career story.
She was there.
Mary was very active in seeking out attention for her daughter and for this investigation. I remember the anniversary of her disappearance.
It was a trip no parent should have to take, a visit to the last place your child was believed to have been seen alive.
She came back with a lot of family members, and so family members of some of the other women also, who they became kind of this mothers of these victims, became kind of a sisterhood.
At one point, the arrival of Gilbert's mother, Mary, prompted an emotional group embrace, all bonded by their shared loss.
Every time I think of my sister, I will think of Shannon Gilbert, regardless. And every time I lay flowers out for my sister, I'll be laying them out for Shannon.
It's, heart-wrenching to us because we are the families of the Gilgo Beach victims. We are also bonded with Shannon's family. So it's like Shannon's like our sister. And we've been every step of the way with this family since a year. And we're going to continue to do it.
And they supported each other, and they came to the site often and spoke openly and freely about their losses and about their frustration with the investigation or the lack of progress in the investigation.
And we keep these girls out there, the public becomes interested in it, and the public interest is what fuels this investigation.
This is not her ending, it's her beginning. This is her legacy.
And I remember her looking around, and I remember asking her what she thought looking around. And it was a bright, brilliant, I think late spring day. It was a really beautiful day, actually. But I remember her thinking or saying that it was a really dark place to her.
What is it like being here today?
Creepy. It's really creepy. It's not pretty. It's not beautiful. This place is really evil.
Oak Beach is this little gated community, and there are a few people who live there year-round. And that is where Shannon had her last engagement when someone, hired her off of Craigslist. And so she had a driver who took her to Oak Beach, to this little community. She met with this man. That was the last time anyone saw her alive.
This afternoon, Newscopter 7 was overhead as investigators searched a house in Oak Beach, the very spot from which neighbors say Shannon Gilbert was running for her life this past spring.
She knocked on the door of a man named Gus Coletti. He was a really nice older man who called 911, but then did not invite her into his house, and she just kept running.
She said, "Help me," again, and she just looked like she was spaced out.
He called 911, but she would not wait around, tumbling down his front steps and vanishing into the weeds. That was May 1st. She hasn't been seen since.
I haven't slept in 2 nights. I could have saved that girl if I didn't know something was going to happen.
New developments today in that string of killings on Long Island that have stumped investigators for nearly a year.
We've got new information the police hope will help them identify the victims.
For the police, they were pretty clear that they did not believe all of the victims were the victims of the same person.
Well, certainly the investigation hasn't stalled. As you can see from today's press conference, we're making progress.
I remember being at press conferences and asking like obvious questions like who, what, when, where, why, or how. And I remember it was a struggle to answer just the basic questions.
We don't have everything back from the forensics yet. And once we do, then we will sit in a room without any reporters and we will speculate a lot, because that's what we do.
But it's definitely bigger than law enforcement could handle at the time because they could not answer the basic questions. But you knew that there was more that they probably could have told us at the time that they didn't tell us at the time. And who knows if that could have made an impact sooner in the case.
Investigators say they still can't figure out who killed them or even how many killers they're dealing with.
The goalposts kept changing, the story kept changing, the theories kept changing, and what they were telling us, it changed every press conference. There was different information. It was very inconsistent.
This takes painstaking hours of detective work, forensic work.
You do this for long enough, you understand how the police work. But the New York Police Department, who we deal with primarily, they release information only when they feel like they have to. They don't want to release partial information because then when it changes, they look like they don't know what they're doing. And so they're very disciplined in terms of what they allow to get to the public. And this speaks, I think, to the inexperience at this level of the Suffolk County Police Department, which has a lot of really, really great police officers and detectives. A lot of them came from the NYPD, but they don't have the experience covering major cases like this. And it showed in terms of how they communicated information.
At first, it seemed like there might be 2 killers, one relatively recent, one in the much more distant past, one who dumped the bodies whole, the other who dismembered them. But now, Police Commissioner Richard Dormer says that theory is out the window.
So there were common denominators that point to one person involved in the killings. Serial killers evolve, they change their MOs.
November of 2011, I had a chance to sit down for an exclusive interview at the time with the police commissioner in Suffolk County, Richard Dormer. And the real question was it one serial killer or 2 serial killers? I mean, how many people were out there?
But the theory is now that we're dealing with one serial killer. We have a killer walking free today.
Even the wild cards make sense now to detectives like this victim, an Asian male, who'd been dressed as a woman when his head was bashed in.
He may have been a sex worker.
And a 2-year-old girl eventually matched through DNA as the likely daughter of another victim.
It's not unusual for a sex worker to have a child accompany them while they visit a client.
This investigation started because Shannon Gilbert disappeared. These sex workers that were later found had disappeared prior to that. Their families had been looking for them. Their families had been going to police. And it wasn't until Shannon Gilbert disappeared and her family really started to hold police accountable and say, you have to get out there and try to find Shannon Gilbert.
Our theory is that this is a coincidence, that she went missing in Oak Beach and has nothing to do with the serial killer.
Gilbert's loved ones aren't surprised. I've been saying that from the very beginning, her sister told me on Facebook. I told police that Shannon has nothing to do with the serial killer. They should start treating her case differently from the other girls. So where is Shannon? The commissioner admits he's stumped.
10 bodies and no Shannon Gilbert. And it's a mystery.
Suffolk County Police tonight gearing up for another search in connection with the serial murders on Long Island.
I was on vacation, and the company, the station, activated my cell phone with international service because we believed there'd be some other bombshell in this case. I needed to be able to make phone calls on it. And I remember hearing that they had found what they thought might be Shannon's personal effects.
Jeans, shoes, a cell phone, and a pocketbook with her identification.
And I spent like the rest of the vacation on the phone.
This is not a result of a new tip. This is just a result of us wanting to research an area that within which she was last seen. We have searched this area before, but again, today's conditions are more favorable to when we searched it in the past because some of the areas are not underwater today.
What we found yesterday is very indicative and very supportive of the fact that she just wandered and ran aimlessly into this marshy area.
There is something strange about how all of these developments happen on anniversaries, on significant dates or around significant dates in this investigation. It's something that, I can't chalk up to anything other than pure coincidence, but it's definitely strange.
1 year to the day since the realization a serial killer was at work here on Ocean Parkway, victims' family members are making a devastating pilgrimage of their own.
I'm so saddened by it. It just reminds me so much of what I lost.
To Melissa Cann, this hole in the thick underbrush is hallowed ground. It's where 1 year ago tomorrow, police found the remains of her sister, Maureen Brainerd Barnes. Her body had been lying there just feet from the road for nearly 2 years.
It doesn't seem real, like real, until you're here and you see it for yourself. And it's just like, you're like inside this like nightmare.
Today, as family members hold a vigil to remember their lost loved ones, their thoughts are also with investigators, who they hope can stop the killer and bring justice to his victims.
They're going to find the killer. He's going to slip up, or somebody's going to finally not be afraid anymore and come forward.
It was on the anniversary of the discovery. It was on the anniversary of the time when they realized they had a serial killer in the first place. 1 year to the day since this became a major story of global importance, they found Shannon.
After a year-long search, police on Long Island believe they have found the remains of Shannon Gilbert.
In December of 2011, they finally find Shannon Gilbert.
In the thick brush and bramble of Oak Beach, police believe they have found Gilbert's remains.
Shannon Gilbert is sort of the sacrificial lamb of this entire tragedy.
We went in with the idea that we were going to do this one last time to see if we could find anything, and we did.
If not for Shannon Gilbert, these women would not have been found.
It's exactly 1 year to the day since we first started covering this case, when the first sets of bodies were found along Ocean Parkway. 1 year later, the woman they've been looking for all along, Shannon Gilbert, police believe they have finally found her remains.
And then finally they found Shannon, and what was the ultimate stunner in all of this is that they believed, and still do believe, that Shannon Gilbert was not murdered, that Shannon Gilbert died in an accidental drowning.
This may be just a young lady ran into the brush in a hysterical state and fell down and, expired.
That's something that I think Shannon's family has always found hard to believe.
Until I heard positive confirmation that it is my daughter, I'm going to believe it's not until I know for sure.
I think a lot of armchair investigators who've been kind of watching this from a distance find hard to believe.
We believe that Shannon Gilbert ran into that area the night that she disappeared. And, looking at the terrain, it's very easy to get engulfed with water, muck, and, fall down and not be able to get out of there.
Whatever happened to Shannon, she is the reason all these other families have closure, because if there is no Shannon Gilbert disappearing in Oak Beach, then there would have been never any closure for these other families.
Mary Gilbert made a tearful pilgrimage back to Oak Beach after detectives told her the news she'd been dreading.
It's too hard. I can't even talk. I don't even have words to say how I'm feeling right now.
Forever and ever. Amen. Ready, let's go!
Shannon's death is controversial in this entire story. The police department stands firmly behind that they have done all of their investigative work and that they believe she died of an accidental drowning. And they are going to maintain that.
Police found what they believe were the remains of 24-year-old Shannon Gilbert buried along Oak Beach in Suffolk County. The medical examiner confirmed that grim find today.
I don't know what to believe. I think no one knows what to believe. I think it's logical that it's a coincidence. The one thing that has stayed constant is they say Shannan Gilbert was not a victim of a crime.
And our condolences to that family on the death of their daughter.
Her family, as well as her family's attorney, feel that Shannan may have been killed.
The investigation that's taken place so far is comparable to something you find in Podunk County.
Find this killer before he strikes and hurts and murders someone that you love.
There was 2 autopsies, one that was done privately that says that there was an injury to the bone in her neck, which is associated with strangulation.
Shannan Gilbert had a hyoid bone that is a horn-shaped bone in your throat that if you break it, you suffocate. The horns were broken.
The official autopsy from law enforcement is that it was undetermined how she died.
Autopsy results obtained by Eyewitness News tonight reveal that Shannan Gilbert, a prostitute missing for 18 months, did not have drugs in her system.
Some people would say it's a coincidence, while others would say maybe there is a relationship. We just don't know it yet.
Forensic scientist Dr. Lawrence Kopolinski says it's likely it's just an outrageous coincidence, though she was missing parts of her fingers and toes and a small bone in her neck, her tox screen negative for drugs.
She was a known cocaine user, and the fact that we find no evidence of cocaine, again, suggests that this tissue is highly compromised.
The theory that she was known to have emotional difficulties, she was known to take drugs, and the idea that she had some sort of an episode in that moment, it's all incredibly coincidental, and it's, you couldn't write it in a book. I mean, you couldn't make it up.
Shannan was running. She was in fear for her life. Someone was chasing her.
Shannan was found without her clothes.
I just don't believe she would run in a drug-induced paranoia and just strip her clothes all the way off, running naked into the marsh.
I've had people say to me and really challenge me on why are we not continuing to hold law enforcement accountable for their investigation into Shannan Gilbert. My argument is, at this point, if they felt that she was part of the pattern, I believe that they would have connected it at this point. There's no reason for them not to. Maybe some will say, well, they don't want to admit that they didn't include her for so long.
The Suffolk County Police Department is grossly derelict in its duty not only to have investigated these murders properly, but also because they failed to protect the lives of these people who are now gone.
Doing what we do, I mean, you want to believe officials, you want to believe that the investigators are doing a professional job and have come up with a conclusion that makes sense. And when it comes to Shannan Gilbert, even with all the dysfunction in this investigation going back for more than a decade, it would be really hard for me to believe that so many people have been wrong about this.
The mother of Shannan Gilbert is demanding action tonight. Gilbert's body was found last week near Oak Beach. Her mother says local police have done a terrible job, and she wants the FBI to take over the investigation.
We are tired of theories. Now we need the truth.
This is a woman who had basically devoted her whole life to finding what happened to her daughter. But in the middle of that, she had another daughter, and life at home was not good. And whatever happened, she was stabbed by her other daughter and died.
She claimed she was hearing voices, and she asked her mother to come over. And her mother dutifully went to her daughter's apartment and was there stabbed to death.
Police say her daughter, 27-year-old Sarah Gilbert, is charged with second-degree murder and criminal possession of a weapon.
Mary Gilbert was bludgeoned with a knife to death by her daughter, her own daughter, Sarah. She's a schizophrenic.
You have families who are hurting, families who have all kinds of troubled pasts and history together, and mental illness, and, in some cases, poverty and desperation. Shannan had an origin story, and whatever it was, it led to her advertising herself for sex on Craigslist, and it led to her dying in a marsh on Long Island. And so the family she left behind wasn't any better off for it. In fact, it just exacerbated the stress that they no doubt had, whatever the stressors were. And in the end, one of Shannan's sisters, who we had gotten to know also, murdered their mom.
It's shocking, It's very upsetting.
friends of Mari Gilbert cannot believe she is dead.
Miss Gilbert had blood on her clothing, and she was detained by police at the scene.
It's crazy that, you would kill your mom.
The family attorney said that Shannon's sister Sarah never got over the loss of her sister, never got over the trauma of this whole experience.
Sarah had been acting in irrational ways, and she had actually been hearing voices, and these voices were telling her what to do.
Probably never got over losing her mom, too, to this whole investigation and to her own obsession about what happened to Shannon.
We are going to continue to fight as long as we need to until justice is done for our daughter.
Now that Mary is dead, we do not intend to give up. Instead, to the contrary, we're going to double our efforts.
Life does go on in the face of these cases that take forever to resolve, and it's not always pretty.
So many people in Shannon's profession are largely ignored and disrespected and disregarded, even by most often their own families. Mary was the singular and beautiful exception, and she pursued the death of her daughter and still attempted right up until her death to find the killer.
I remember there was a big debate. The debate was that the police say these look to be prostitutes.
All 4 bodies found last month near each other on Gilgo Beach, Long Island. All 4 were women, all 4 were prostitutes.
And there were people who didn't want to say that. Because why do we have to say that? There were women who were found. Well, I made the argument that, hey, this is an indication of who's at risk here. If that's what's happening, the majority are prostitutes, and they are just found who knew where they lived. They were found buried in the beaches. We should say that. We should let people know.
I think there's certainly a bias in life against people who work in the sex trade. It's also clear that a lot of them are victims too, in every way. I mean, and not just these 4 women who were the victims of murder. Obviously, they were victims of a violent crime. But even people who sell their bodies for sex, they're being trafficked by others.
I think law enforcement and us as a society have to do better of saying it doesn't matter what you do, what you're involved in. If you have disappeared, or if we find that you've been killed, you deserve justice just as much as anybody else, because your family is left with that pain. And so it shouldn't matter what you're doing.
It's a demand issue as much as it's a supply issue. And so, I think law enforcement is rightly starting to crack down on the people who are buying the services and the people who are employing the women much more than the women themselves. The real perplexing kind of tragedy here in all this is that the FBI does this. I mean, they have whole units devoted to serial killers, and they were kind of kept at bay.
After Shannon Gilbert is found, that's when things kind of start to go a little quiet in the investigation.
We're here today because we think it's important to let the public know that we are doing everything we can to solve these murders.
Here we have another anniversary, December 10th, 2015. So 5 years later, we have another announcement, the first in a while, that the FBI is now joining the investigation.
5 years later, Cameron says it's now time to call in the FBI.
The FBI has a lot more experience nationwide investigating serial killer cases than we do. So, as we look through the evidence with them, maybe just bouncing things off each other will be useful. So, I'm excited about the new partnership with them.
Bringing the FBI to the table with all of its expertise and resources is a step in the right direction.
Which has been going on for 5 years with no FBI involvement. They provided some kind of support early on when they were searching with a device they had in a helicopter, but the FBI was kept at bay all this time. And only now are they getting involved.
Timothy Sini, a former federal prosecutor now awaiting confirmation as police commissioner, would not address why the FBI wasn't asked for more help sooner. But he did say this.
It's not about who makes the arrest. It's not about who gets the credit. That's not helpful. What's helpful is making sure that there's a climate and a culture where people are working together to solve serious crimes.
Why did that collaboration not happen for so many years? It happened because of politics, because we had a police chief in Suffolk County, as well as a DA, that did not seem open to FBI involvement.
The announcement comes just one day after the arrest of Suffolk's former police chief, James Burke.
We know for a fact that Suffolk County Police Chief James Burke single-handedly kept the FBI out of this investigation.
Are you still denying the accusations?
What is Chief Burke hiding?
I did a one-on-one with Burke when he was promoted to chief of department of the Suffolk County Police Department. And I remember sitting in his office talking to him about why this case was so dysfunctional. I remember he looked at me and he said, "We're going to take charge of this case and we're going to solve it.
It's time for us to do our jobs."
There were all these questions about why they didn't involve the FBI. And it turned out it was because the FBI was looking at him.
The FBI arrested 51-year-old James Burke at his mother's home this morning and then brought him to the FBI office in Melville for processing.
James Burke's tenure as police chief was a questionable time and ethical free fall. From the moment he started, he spent the time that he was there doing everything possible to cover up his own misdeeds. And that's where the focus of Suffolk County Police was at the time, not on solving the Gilgo case.
Burke, accused of assaulting a handcuffed suspect and trying to cover it up, he pleaded not guilty to the charges, one count of deprivation of civil rights and one count of conspiracy to commit obstruction of justice.
He was cocky till the end. He believed his own hype, he believed he could cover up his own misdeeds, and he spent the entire time doing that.
Prosecutors painted a miserable picture of a man who thought he had the power to beat up Loeb in front of at least 3 officers, then allegedly suggests they give Loeb, a heroin addict, a so-called hot shot, a deadly mix of heroin.
Christopher Loeb broke into James Burke's vehicle. I believe he found his firearm. He found sex toys. James Burke had a questionable history before this.
And so the judge denied bail altogether, saying he thinks the corruption of an entire department by Burke is shocking.
The district attorney, Thomas Spoda, and James Burke had a decades-long relationship. They were very close, and both of them ended up facing criminal charges.
Thomas Spoda learned his fate in a corruption case today in court. Spoda helped orchestrate an elaborate plot to cover up a 2012 police beating of a suspect.
No one is above the law.
We know from officers and detectives who worked during that time that Burke made it very clear to the department that he did not want the FBI involved.
Chief James Burke is stepping down and resigning from the department.
And he ended up getting indicted in federal court on corruption charges.
James Burke will now spend nearly 3 years behind bars.
He spent 46 months in prison, and he got back out and was picked up again for soliciting a sex worker in a public park.
Burke is now charged with public lewdness, offering a sex act, criminal solicitation, and indecent exposure.
What does that tell you? Not someone you would want investigating a serial killer.
Your crime has affected the entire county and the entire police organization and institution.
Being a local reporter here, the way it would work with Gilgo Beach is something would happen and then it would go quiet for years. That was just the way it worked. Get a little something, quiet for years. So in January of 2020, we get another little bit of information.
A new piece of evidence in the case. Cops releasing this picture of a belt.
The Suffolk County Police Commissioner at the time, Geraldine Hart, brings out this picture of this belt.
A black leather belt embossed with the letters HM or WH was recovered during the initial stages of this investigation.
And we thought, oh, this must be some sort of smoking gun.
They call this evidence significant, yet police held on to it for nearly a decade.
It was the first time the needle was moving again, and she was trying to make something happen. I think she was also viewed as an outsider because she came from the FBI, and she was trying to further the case. She was trying her best.
We have decided now to leverage social media.
Here's this police commissioner just standing up saying, you know, we're going to have a website, we're going to get outside labs now. First time they're starting to think about DNA.
They realize that this is a small piece of evidence, but they're hoping that it will generate some interest.
Police were hoping that when they put this belt out there that they would get some leads, but nothing again. It went quiet again.
Police in Suffolk County today released the identity of a victim in the infamous Gilgo Beach murders.
And then 5 months later, in May of 2020, in the middle of COVID, police police come out with more news.
Today, we are announcing that Jane Doe number 6 has been positively identified as Valerie Mack.
Mack was ultimately identified when investigators used data from DNA websites to track her family down.
Interviews were conducted with potential relatives who provided investigators with additional DNA samples, which were processed and analyzed, leading us to determine the deceased woman's identity.
So I stopped being the Long Island reporter in around 2012, 2013, and I was still actively interested in this case. I still covered it from time to time, but there were Long Island reporters who came in after me. Kristen Thorne replaced me on Long Island, Shantae Lands replaced her on Long Island, and there's a continuum of people who've been covering this case. So I cover the NYPD a lot, basically every major story involving the New York City Police Department, which is the biggest and perhaps most professional police agency in the country, if not the world. Rodney Harrison was a rising star in the New York Police Department. He had been chief of detectives, he had been chief of patrol, he had been chief of department, and then he left to go be the police commissioner in Suffolk County. And when Suffolk County made that announcement that Rodney Harrison was coming to run their department, I knew they were going to solve this case.
I am honored and proud to welcome Rodney Harrison to be the next commissioner of this policing family.
And it comes just one day after the 10-year mark of the discovery of the remains of Shannan Gilbert.
For us, our two top priorities right now, solving the Gilgo Beach serial murder case and implementing the police reform plan.
Suffolk County Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison has always said that these homicides are solvable and that he is going to solve them. So he creates a task force, Gilgo Beach Task Force.
Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison today announcing a new task force made up of investigators from the FBI, the New York State Police, as well as the Suffolk County Police, Sheriff's Office, and the DA's office.
People who really know what they're doing in investigating a major case like this.
When I first came into this position, there was a commitment. The commitment is I'm going to make sure that we use all of our resources to be able to identify the individuals or individual that was involved in this case and make sure we hold them accountable and bring them to justice.
It was kind of like confetti going off because I was like, finally, he's bringing that institutional knowledge that we see every day with the NYPD. That small town police department needed a big town, big city approach to this case.
Working with our federal partners, I think that's going to be something that's going to definitely get us over that hurdle going into the future of this case.
I hope that what the Gilgo Beach Task Force has proved is that collaboration, true collaboration, not just saying that you're collaborating, but actually doing it, works. And that's what led to a break in this case.
New video tonight that shows a Gilgo Beach homicide victim just before she disappeared.
Within 2 months of the Gilgo Beach Task Force being established, we get an alert that Suffolk County Police are going to release video of Megan Waterman leaving a hotel in Hauppauge. It was the last time she was seen.
Police believe after she left the hotel, she went to meet with her killer.
Whoever killed her picked her up that night. So we see her exit the hotel, and that's the last time she's seen. And as reporters, we're thinking, again, why do this now? They've had this video for so many years. Why now? They basically said they just want to keep the case going. Again, we get this another just like a little bone. And then they release these 911 calls. Even just hearing the news that they were going to release these 911 calls was so monumental. You have to remember, things had gone very quiet for like a decade.
Suffolk County Police will release 911 calls linked to the unsolved murder of Shannan Gilbert.
Gilbert was at the house of a man named Joseph Brewer in Ocean Beach.
At some point during the meeting with Brewer, Shannan reportedly began acting irrational. This prompted Brewer to contact Michael Pack, who was outside in his driveway.
Pack was Gilbert's bodyguard.
These calls, Shannan Gilbert's attorney, John Ray, had been fighting for years.
If they don't release the tapes, when they claim they're engaging in a new initiative to share information regarding Long Island serial killer, they have to give up the tapes. What else is there?
He had them. He wasn't allowed to give them to us.
For years, 9 years, the Suffolk County Police Department has covered up the facts in this investigation. They need to be challenged about why they hid this and fought me in court all these years to keep this secret.
The 911 tape was sort of as advertised.
No, stop it, please. Stop it, please, please stop it. Please stop it, no.
It was Shannon Gilbert sounding terrified, running for her life. They're coming after me. They're out to get me.
State police. Yeah, there's somebody after me. I'm sorry? There's somebody after me.
My first reaction was, she certainly sounds upset.
No, stop, no.
There's something wrong.
Stop it, please. Please stop.
But when you hear the male voices on the call,
How are you upstairs? Okay? Please. What's the matter? Are you okay?
they seem genuine that there is nothing wrong.
Come on. You freaking miracle. Come on.
I'm in the middle of nowhere.
Let's go back to Manhattan. All right? We're in Long Island. We're out near the water.
Please, stop.
Please, Mike. Brother, come on.
No, stop it, please.
You hear her security guard, as well as the man who had retained her as a client for that night, and they're telling her to calm down.
No, time to go.
Please.
And she is frantic that someone is going to kill her.
Why? You gonna kill me?
You hear this interaction of them trying to get her to calm down, and eventually she leaves. You can hear her feet on the gravel because she's running through the gravel of this development. And you hear her go up to somebody else's door, and she knocks on the door.
Shannon.
And the gentleman says, you know, what's wrong? Are you okay? Be careful.
Don't keep yourself hurt. Where are you going? Wait a minute. Where are you going?
And she just keeps running. I mean, you hear her run, and that's it.
I could have saved that girl if I didn't know something was going to happen.
And then eventually the call ends, and now we know she ran into this marsh in the dark. She didn't know where she was. She may or may not have been on some substance. She may or may not have been having some sort of emotional episode. We'll never know. But she ran into this marsh, which was described really as like quicksand to us. It's muddy at the bottom. You can get stuck and mired in it. In areas, I think it was 6 feet deep with water. And really, they think she just drowned.
The prevailing opinion in Shannon's death, while tragic, was not a murder and was most likely non-criminal.
I do believe that Shannon Gilbert's death was accidental. I think that she drowned.
The police decided that the man who had hired her was not a suspect. They decided that the old man she knocked on the door who called 911, he was not a suspect. They said they ruled out that other guy in the community who everyone thought was the serial killer. He wasn't. But the police, you know, rightly or wrongly, had lost a lot of credibility with the families and with a lot of the public. And so it was really hard to know what you could or couldn't believe.
It doesn't matter if people think that she's a victim of the Long Island serial killer or not. Something happened to her that night. She ran for her life.
I think initially the families felt that they were being judged because of the work that their loved ones were involved in. These women were sisters, and in the case of Megan Waterman, she had a 3-year-old daughter. That daughter is now growing up without her mother. And I think that these families have a really important story to tell and could really emphasize the importance of law enforcement and us as a society taking these cases seriously when people disappear. And when the families tell law enforcement, I'm telling you there's something wrong. I'm telling you this is not her behavior, that is listened to more attentively.
This is breaking news from Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
And we are following breaking news. A major break in a cold case that left residents shaken for more than 12 years. A suspect now under arrest in connection to the unsolved murders on Long Island known as the Gilgo Beach murders.
2 months later, July 13th, 2023, police finally make an arrest.
Oh my God, I think I know who it is.
For years, didn't know who it was, and he was living right next to me.
A predator that ruined families. If not for the members of this task force, he would still be out in the streets today.
This case is not over, it's only beginning.
This is a major step forward.
Finally, a touch of justice has come to Suffolk County.
I got a call from Kim Dillon, our assistant news director. I think she woke me up and said there's an arrest in Gilgo.
I was in bed sleeping. My phone went off, got up, and it was my manager. And she said, you need to get to Massapequa Park right now. My first reaction was, there's no way.
I immediately went out to Massapequa Park. I couldn't believe it was finally happening.
So as you're driving, you know, your texts are coming in, the calls are coming. When are you going to get there? When can you get there? As soon as I got there, they're like, we want you on live right away.
We're here at the corner of First Avenue and Michigan Avenue in Massapequa Park. I want to show you this red house. This is the house that police have been swarming this morning, 105 First Avenue in Massapequa Park. We know that one suspect is in custody in at least some of the Gilgo Beach deaths.
So then we watch them take things out.
The investigation here at the house is certainly picking up. Just about maybe 30 minutes ago, we saw officers in hazmat suits going into the house. So clearly they're in there to do some sort of forensic activity.
I'll tell you, looking at Rex Heuermann's house, my first reaction was, if there was any house that I would think he would live in, it would be this one. The rest of the street is beautifully manicured. These houses are picturesque. Perfect lawns, flowers, American flags. Rex Heuermann's house is literally falling apart.
This one, just you always looked at it and it looked a little creepier, weird.
The man that lives at that house, his description is consistent with what police have said previously about who they believe this suspect is. We do know that he is listed as the president and owner of an architecture firm in Manhattan. He is 59 years old, and he is a white male.
This guy, Rex Heuermann, is everything we've been led to believe would be the guy. He's kind of a loner. He's kind of antisocial. His house is clearly different from every other house on that block. It's sort of a mess. He works in the city. He has a job where he's very technical, where he's an architect and engineer. And it's everything that we've been told to expect from the killer.
I just couldn't wait to talk to the neighbors. Like, how were these people going to react to this happening next door to them?
What do you think about all of this? The whole world has been watching this case since 2010, and here it is in your little neighborhood.
It's a shocker. I mean, it's a real eye-opener. And like I said, 29 years. This is the worst case I've ever seen.
You never saw anybody coming in and out of that house?
No. Never. You would say, who lives here? Never see anybody.
The fact that it's in the exact town is kind of alarming.
It's just really unsettling knowing that something like this literally hits so close to home.
It was kind of amazing. It was sort of a carnival-like atmosphere. You know, people were standing around, taking pictures, taking selfies.
It just makes no sense to me how someone could, like, this close to me.
It was a huge media spectacle. All the network came, all the cable networks came.
I live in Manhattan now. I had to come back out here to see this. What can you say? It's scary.
True crime documentaries showed up, started filming.
This is a big case, you know, and it's like, I knew it was going to be a strong presence out here because a lot of people are interested. There's a lot of unanswered questions.
This was an earthquake in Massapequa Park. This was a storm like they had never expected this.
Rex is just a strange guy. And we said hello in the mornings, you know, talked every once in a while. Nobody would speak to the guy. People would literally cross the streets when they came to the guy's house.
The next door neighbor did tell us that Heuermann would look over the fence at his wife sunbathing.
Put a little lounge chair out there and try to get a little sun every once in a while. And every time she did it, there he was, you know, popping his head over, hi, how you doing? And trying to start a conversation with her.
It was really like a surreal experience. It's rare in a reporter's life that you start a story like this this and see it all the way through.
As someone who has covered this story since its inception, since 2010, this is a day, in fact, I never, quite frankly, thought I would see.
The moment wasn't lost on any of us, from the producer in the control room to Bill, to myself, to Josh. It was the same people on that very first day that we reported on the story that we had continued to cover over the course of a decade. And there we were with an arrest.
Standing outside Rex Heuermann's house in Massapequa Park, 12 and a half years later, and having Liz Cho toss to me about this story was so surreal, and it was such a full circle crazy moment. I just felt we had to remark on it.
Josh is in Massapequa Park tonight with much more on today's arrest and on the latest 3 murders. Josh.
First time investigating.
Yeah, Liz, it's just inconceivable that 12 and a half years have gone by now since that bitterly cold night when you and I were on the air talking about this for the very first time. 12 and a half years later, on a thick and hazy and humid afternoon, Rex Heuermann is now in custody. We have brand new and exclusive video that Eyewitness News just obtained of him being taken into custody.
My mission that day was finding the surveillance video, and I found the only surveillance video that exists of his arrest.
Rex Heuermann was arrested on this sidewalk behind me between 36th and 35th here on 5th Avenue around 8:30 last night. And that's also where you see a line of police vehicles behind me executing a search warrant. They have been inside for hours.
It was just that moment. It was that moment that happens as journalists that doesn't happen, that only happens on TV, because it does not happen in real life. But we did have one of those TV moments. I ultimately got the surveillance video from a business owner who did not want to be identified. And when he showed me the surveillance video, I did not know it was going to be what we ended up seeing. Like him walking down the street, them converging on him, his satchel bag on. He has on jeans and like just casual business wear. And he's just kind of walking nice and casually down the street, and he has his work bag, and we're like, that's him, because we're all watching this in real time, like crazy, looking at it at the time, because there is a camera there, but you don't know what you're about to see.
Surveillance video shows an accused serial killer's last moments of freedom before police move in.
It was cash money. It was so compelling. He did not see that coming.
I'm standing here with my law enforcement partners in the Gilgo Task Force to announce the indictment of defendant Rex Andrew Heuermann, 59 years of age. He's been arrested by the Suffolk County Police Department's homicide detectives, and he's been indicted in a grand jury presentation by the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office for the murders of Melissa Bartholomew, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello. The investigation of Maureen Brainerd Barnes is ongoing.
To hear it all come out officially at a press conference, and oh, by the way, the suspect lives, as the crow flies, it's probably just a couple miles due north. I mean, exactly due north from where the bodies were found.
After years of searching and fear, years of true crime hobbyists and their theories,
Rex, did you do it?
Turned out the suspected Gilgo Beach killer was hiding in plain sight the whole time. 59-year-old Rex Heuermann, a suburban husband, father of 2.
Do we know if Rex Heuermann killed these women? No, we don't know. But to have a suspect is a huge feat in this investigation.
A first court appearance happening just moments ago for the man now charged with being the killer behind some of the Gilgo Beach murders.
We raced over to the court in Riverhead. We lined up to get in, and I know I'm going to have multiple live shots after this thing wraps up, so I want to be as prepared as I can. So I'm one of a few people who have a hard copy, the old school, of the indictment, and I'm in line to get into the courtroom. I'm on the phone with our assignment editor, Mark. He's much faster at going through it. I'm reading for the first time about the burner phones, about how he threatened the families of his victims, about how he was obsessed with the investigation. And we still don't know, how did they get him? How did they get him? Our assignment editor says, Stacy, go to page 30. And there it was, a pizza crust. It was a pizza crust, dozens of pages in on this indictment, that they got his DNA and matched it to a hair on some tape. It was brilliant. It was easy as pie, as we say. It was brilliant.
It's a chilling indictment, and each count carries with it the potential for life in prison without parole.
My most powerful memory of that day is just that poor family member sitting 6 inches from me sobbing. It was a real crime. And no one should think that it wasn't because they were sex workers. They were sex workers and they were murdered. And they have family who are still grieving, and there's other families who want answers. And if this man is responsible, we should know soon enough.
I don't think I'll sleep until they catch this guy.
The person who murdered Lynn Bartholomew's daughter Melissa and continues to haunt her youngest child.
I'm scared of my own protection. The fact that he was calling my phone, I have to be worried about, is that going to happen to me one day?
They had been taunted by this guy. And that had come out in the course of reporting out this story, that he had called their families, taunted them, and talked about what he had done to their loved one.
Over the next 5 weeks or so, he would call the then 15-year-old 5 more times, eerily each time from Melissa's cell, at one point saying he had killed Melissa.
They were very taunting and angry words. My heart would stop and just didn't even know what to do mostly.
He had a system. He had a clear system. Burner phones. He stalked people on social media. He stalked the families on social media.
The Suffolk DA describing to the judge how Heuermann used 7 different burner phones. He would take selfies on them like these and use them to search for victims and violent pornography. He even searched obsessively for the relatives of his victims.
And he was doing it from Midtown Manhattan. There was sounds of traffic in the background, and we'd been hearing all of this. And the families and their representatives had been telling us this for years. And the police had not. The police had been very careful not to reveal this information to us publicly throughout various iterations of the leadership in the police department.
When we talked about, not going before the media, if you see, Rodney did go before the media, but it was always in a very controlled manner, and it was always with a controlled purpose. Again, we did that because we knew we were playing before an audience of one person.
I'd want to know actually what he was doing during that time. And we know he was going to work, he had a family.
We know that he is 59 years old, lived in Massapequa Park, and worked in Manhattan. He was married and had 2 children.
He was functioning in New York City as a building engineer.
Rex Heuermann, I'm an architect, I'm an architectural consultant, I'm a troubleshooter, born and raised on Long Island.
Okay.
Been working in Manhattan since 1987.
But with respect to the 4 women that we'd covered that have been attributed to him, I mean, how aware was he of every step of the search, and how was he consuming that information?
Searching on the internet at one point, why hasn't the Long Island serial killer been found?
He was Googling about himself.
In a 14-month period, he had over 200 searches pertaining to the Gilgo investigation.
Even through this, I never became like an expert on the psychology of a serial killer. I mean, there are people who focus on this, but what little I know is that they are, incessantly narcissistic, right? They want credit for what they've done. They want people to know about what they've done.
He was compulsively searching pictures of the victims, but not only pictures of the victims, pictures of their relatives, their sisters, their children, and he was trying to locate those individuals.
He asked me if I knew about the Gilgo Beach murders. And back then, I was like, he's just from that area. But now I just see it as a serial killer, kind of just putting it in somebody's face.
There's some kind of thrill of the hunt, of being the hunted and staying a step ahead of investigators.
We knew that this one person would be watching, and we didn't want to give him any insight into what we were doing. And we also didn't want him to know just how close we were getting.
It was such a close call that I almost don't even know if I can carry on in my industry.
Following Rex Heuermann's arrest, I ended up speaking with a woman who was a sex worker in this area around that time.
Once I had the name, I ran him through the screening tools that we have to keep us safe. One of the phone numbers was saved as do not answer. If I get a vibe from somebody that this person is scary or that they might try and contact me from like another number, that's when I'll save them as do not answer. So it's really scary to find out that the person was actually only less than a mile from me.
Were you working on Long Island during the time of these disappearances?
Yes, I was. And I was avoiding... Sorry.
Take your time.
I was avoiding calls to the Hamptons because I thought that's where the person was. And so I started working in the city. And then to find out that the person's actually working in the city and living right next to me is just really scary.
There were several sex workers that spoke out after his arrest. It was chilling to hear what they had to say.
I had a really, really bad feeling. Like my gut was like telling me I needed to get away from him.
Former escort Nikki Brass, who says Heuermann solicited her approximately 8 years ago. He actually mentioned the Gilgo case.
When he talked about it, he would like speak in a they and hypothetical, but he had this like smile on his face that made me really uneasy.
It sent shivers up the back of my neck as we're listening to what she's describing, and you think of what could have happened and what she managed to avoid.
One thing I struggle with as an investigative reporter is that we know that this tip about the Chevy Avalanche belonging to this gentleman who was last seen with Amber Costello, that tip came in 2010.
He was driving a dark-colored, black, first-generation Chevrolet Avalanche with a unique feature that was between it's a pickup truck, so it was between the cab and the bed, and that was identified. Again, that was back in 2010.
For law enforcement to not take that tip seriously until 12 years later is something that is highly questionable.
It wasn't until March of 2022 that database was searched by the task force and this individual was identified.
That tip was called in by Amber Costello's roommate and friend because he knew that Amber had disappeared.
She wouldn't just leave with anybody, you know, she wasn't stupid, you know, and even though it was money like that, you know, it kind of makes me believe that she was comfortable enough with this person.
Amber Costello, the day before her disappearance on September 1st, 2010, she met with an individual for the purposes of having him pay her money for her services, but she involved herself in a ruse where once the individual gave her money, other individuals came into the house, pretended to be significant others, confronted the individual with the purpose of making that individual uncomfortable, having him leave without retrieving his money, and that's exactly what happened.
He knew that Amber had probably been harmed, and he knew the last person who was with her, this gentleman that had come into the house.
She wound up leaving with, you know, that night.
That individual was identified as a person who was between 6'4" and 6'6", a large man, thickly built and dark hair.
So why, 12 years later, is this the first time that police are really looking at that tip? Police have not been able to provide a good answer to that question.
Honestly, what has Rex Heuermann been doing all this time? He's only a suspect, he hasn't been convicted, but if in fact he did this, why would he have stopped in 2010? And so for all the time that went by, and you know, they caught him on a tip that they got way back when, the thing about the truck. So what I want to know is has he theoretically killed anybody else? And could that have been prevented if they ran this case more professionally from the start?
We still don't know where these women were murdered. Their bodies were found at Gilgo, but that doesn't mean that's where they were killed. And so that is something that is still part of this investigation.
Suffolk County District Attorney Ray Tierney visits the site, answering the burning question if he thinks anyone might have been killed in Heuermann's house.
Evidence does not point either one way or the other.
Could Rex Heuermann be linked to some of these other victims? Absolutely. That's what investigators are going to have to figure out.
Bodies, the demographics were a little different, but it doesn't mean that we're not going to take a closer look and see if Rex Heuermann is attached to them or other bodies that might have been discovered throughout the state.
Do the killings of the other victims resemble the Gilgo 4? They do not. They are not just looking at Rex Heuermann for these other killings.
We'll continue to go after those that committed these crimes and hold them accountable.
This is an extended period of time for these homicides to happen. That means there's that many more potential suspects because the amount of time that has gone by.
The case now expanding across the country, with investigators searching Heuermann's property in Las Vegas and in South Carolina, where they retrieved this pickup truck believed to be connected to the killings.
Suffolk County Police and the Gilgo Beach Task Force and the FBI will tell you they are investigating, working with all the police departments.
The investigators were never discouraged. They continued and uncovered evidence and followed leads. They never stopped working and will continue to work tirelessly until we bring justice to all the families involved.
We know so much about the Gilgo 4, and we know so little about everybody else. Those people were murdered. And those killers need to be found too.
I can't imagine what it must feel like so many years later to hear that there's finally an arrest in this case. I also can't imagine what it feels like to be a family member of one of the other victims. There's all this hoopla around this arrest, but there are 6 other victims whose cases have never been solved and may never be solved.